It's Chelsea,
It's Nina.
and you're in the Critics' Kingdom.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our DCOM season finale episode of the Critics' Kingdom.
Yes, guys, this is the cap to the end of season 1.
Yeah, we would play End of the Road, but copyright.
We don't have copyright. Yeah.
and
yeah.
legal fees. It's super exciting and bittersweet.
Yeah, and we do want to acknowledge that obviously we didn't cover every single DCOM. I mean, if you do a simple scroll, you will have seen that on based on the list that they have, and that is literally because we would have been covering them for approximately another year and a half. And that's a little insane for both us and for you. And as much as, we both think children's media really matters, at this point in our lives, it doesn't need to matter that much for us.
Yeah, so... it's like I literally don't interact with children every day, so I mean, it would be a little bit, and I don't work in children's media, so it would be a little bit.
It might be a little bit OD, just a little.
Yeah. But with that said, we did try to choose. We essentially cut it down by half. That's what we decided to do. And we tried to choose the ones that we felt were sort of the most resonant, wide-reaching, and maybe emblematic of the Disney Channel original movie conceptually. So that's, if you're wondering why, we chose this set of about 50 something, maybe 60.
Yeah, we're
to do.
60-ish, I think.
Yeah. Haven't done the full count because it might be slightly depressing to realize how many Disney Channel
movies.
How much
time we've spent watching DCOMs
in the last year.
Yeah.
But again, labor of love, But yeah, so we those half we thought were, and ratings showed us and things like that they were sort of the most or the iconic half of the Disney Channel original movies, whether or not all of them reach that status.
Right.
They were the most well received.
Right. For sure. So I think with that, Nina, do we want to start off by giving our best of and honorable mentions lists?
I would love to do that. As I will say, it's I'll preface this by saying, in consideration for my personal rankings of these 60 odd films, I definitely did consider, storyline, plot, character development, writing, technical prowess, all of these things, of course. But I think the larger things for me, character development was actually quite large for me. But the other sort of big thing for me was entertainment value, but entertainment value kind of specifically for children. How well does this film communicate what it is trying to communicate to children while still entertaining them so that they actually absorb it? These films are not without problems. We obviously know that. We've been through them over and over again. But yeah, so those were kind of exactly. So how much that the level to which they are problematic in certain ways is weighed against that good lesson plus entertainment value and delivery system of that to a child. And what would I want to what would I choose to have my kid watch?
Mm-hmm.
So that's sort of where these rankings are coming from. And obviously, yes, a bit of iconography and just personal enjoyment on my end. But yeah, that's how it goes. So with that, I will begin my rankings of my personal top 10, going from lower on the list to higher on the list. And with that, number 10 for me would actually be The Color of Friendship. It's great for all the obvious reasons, won an Emmy. It's, there are obviously great things about the film. It's dealing with very heavy, very important subject matter. for kids, but we also discussed like in watching it a lot of the problems we saw, and how the film might be dated in sort of how it understands or has these characters understand what race relations look like, and like simplified in the way in which it portrays that. So there's that. So that's why it's sort of at the bottom of mine. Number 9 for me, Don't Look Under the Bed. All right, so yes, it still kind of does scare me, and I'm not a big horror person, but I really do just love the way that this film grapples with reality and belief, and just what it means to move through trauma, and to like accept even sort of the unknown both in the world and within yourself. I think it does a really good job of that, and it has great parents in it, which like it's always nice when we can celebrate great parents who like do the right thing in the given moment for like what is helpful to their kid. So I appreciate that. Number 8 is Johnny Tsunami. Like, here's where we're getting to a place where it's like I'm like, this is really coming down to just like personal preference of like what would I want to watch again, like the rewatch factor of when am I going to watch these things again. Johnny Tsunami, obviously like super fun, super. It's just like it's such a cool film. Like there's so much just cool stuff going on there. It's like skiers and surfers and snowboarding. Like there's a level of like ease and fun to it. You get the clashing of culture, the clashing of class, and just like what it means to be relocated and how you have to navigate through that. And it does a really good job of doing that and staying crazy fun the whole time. So that's why it's there. But like there were other films that I enjoyed more than that, or I would like rewatch more than that. Number 7 for me is Smart House. Might be controversial to some to have it not like top 5 or top 3, but I think that as much as I love this movie, as much as I still think it's great, as much as like my kids are gonna watch it, like for sure, it's just in comparison to the other films, like higher than it. Like I feel like it deals with like important stuff, but it's not very wide reaching stuff, you know. The technological aspect of it is like fairly relevant to a certain extent. I don't know how relevant it will be once my kids exist, because exponential growth. But yeah, it's just like it feels a bit more sort of insular of a story than the ones that are ranked above it. Number 6, Gotta Kick It Up. Still love it. Dancing is still incredible. Like, it was so fun and so great, and I really appreciate again the care that was taken with this film, and it shows in like and the allowance that was given to let this film be done by the people who it concerned. And yeah, like it's a beautiful film. It's a film that I very much deeply identified with. Again, it's only in like the bottom 5 because there are some other films that like I just love a bit more, and I think might have a bit more of a connective tissue with like kids generally. Number 5, the iconic, the beloved High School Musical. Definitely the musical, like it's the musical of a generation. That's just like a fact. It's going to live on in infamy, not in infamy, sorry, but like in a good way.
Yeah,
that doesn't make any sense. It's gonna live on. It's gonna be well respected like forever. They did that, and they did that really, really, really well. It's still dope. I think it's a very fun musical for kids. But it's not like my favorite movie, so that's why like it lives where it lives. Number 4, I realized I said this in the actual review and it ended up still holding true, like Lemonade Mouth. Like I think Lemonade Mouth is like one of the best Disney Channel original movies. I think it's incredible as a musical. I love the 80s pop punk of it. I love like the iconographic way that it like engages with the rebel. Like I think it's just so cool and so well done. It's an ensemble cast. It's like actually diverse, at least to a fairly strong degree, all things considered. It's got laughs. Like it's got like funny characters, like truly like sort of out there characters, even in the adults. And I just appreciate kind of everything about it. I still bang the soundtrack. I think it's incredible. And especially since it's a film that came out later on when I was past my Disney Channel original movie like phase, the fact that as an adult I could watch it for the first time and love it the way that I did, to me, like that speaks volumes. I don't know what I would have done when I was a kid with this movie. So that is why Lemonade Mouth is number 4 for me. Number 3, Halloween Town. Like it is just such a fun film, an ingenious concept for like a theme movie for kids. And it just holds up. Like it is a movie that I genuinely want to watch every single Halloween. And I want to like watch it with my kids every single Halloween. And that, yeah, I just think that, you know, it also lives in an iconic place for this suite. Number 1 and 2 is really hard for me. But in number 2, it's Cheetah Girls. Like we've already talked about how much, like, it's literally our longest podcast episode. This movie is incredible. It meant so much to both Chelsea and I, to our friends. Like it was maybe our high school musical. Like it swept us up in it, and it's for good reason, and it still holds up. And it has Raven is iconic as an actress. The film, like the fashion, the songs, the choreography, everything about it just like hits the nose on the head over and over again. And it's incredible. But for me, my number 1 is Xenon, Girl of the 21st Century. I love Xenon's character. I love space. I've always loved space. I like that it's a space film that was made in like 2000 or 1999, and it still holds up today.
Yep, 99.
99. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
super early, but it still holds up today. And it's one of those movies that like they literally get the friendship right. They get the slang right. They actually develop the characters. And they create a character who is a child who is like precocious and a bit rambunctious and a bit mischievous, but like never comes at it with malice, is strong enough to trust herself even when others won't, and like doesn't hold it against people for not trusting her in that moment, because she trusts herself enough for everybody. And I just think that that's it. Like that's like, if I want my kid to have one lesson, that's the lesson. So Xeon, Girl of the 21st Century is like top for me. It's number 1. And just a few honorable mentions really quickly. I won't go into them super hard, but my honorable mentions would be the Even Stevens movie, because I just think it's still so funny and chaotic good. Rip Girls, like a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful film, and like lives in that place of exploration and just like loveliness. Brink, still super fun. Xenon the sequel, because I would argue it's the only good Disney Channel original movie sequels. Like, yeah. And then Wendy Wu, Homecoming Warrior. And that is my rankings for the Disney Channel original movie suite of the Critics' King.
I would say for mine, number 10, I would actually agree with you. Color of Friendship, definitely. I think even with all of its faults that we heavily discussed in our episode about it, it still really meant a lot for our generation. And I'm also not going to deny the fact that I think it taught quite a lot of American kids about apartheid in South Africa for the first time. And so I feel like if not solely for that, it deserves to be on a top 10.
I agree.
My number 9, I said Get a Clue.
Oh, snap! Oh, fuck. Like, Get a Clue is also an honorable mention of mine. I'm so sorry. But yes, incredible. Go ahead.
Yeah, so number 9, I Get a Clue, because Lindsay and Brenda, what a match made in heaven. They also had Alfalfa from the Little Rascals remake. Like, it was just a great group of kids. It was such a well done movie. We really enjoyed it. The fashion still holds up. It was just fun. It was a very fun and well done children's caper. And they deserve to be applauded for that. And also Lindsay Lohan could kind of do no wrong at that point in her career. So like, she's just a great actress. and especially at this point for a decom, like she was really like acting like she was on ABC Family, and I shout out to her for that. She really was.
Oh.
And number 8 is High School Musical. Similar to what you said, it is really like the musical of our generation. I think even if people aren't really willing to admit that yet, that's just what it is. It is our Grease. Like that's kind of at this point I think we can just say it. We're almost, well, almost 20 years out. Oof.
Yeah.
We're way over 10. So I think it's like it's just time to admit it. You got to get it
It's
out.
a sad truth, y'all, but it is a truth.
Like listen, okay, Kenny Ortega did his thing, and I will not deny that man. He did it. It was done. And it basically gave us half of the like young adult stars we had. Like if we're being honest. Which is crazy.
True.
So then number 7, I put Rip Girls because I feel like it was just such a beautiful film, and then the way that they did it was authentic, and like it just made sense, and it was well crafted, and I just really loved it, especially growing up. Also because obviously like I lived on an island, so like um but yeah, I just think it was great. I really enjoyed it. It's like always been in one of my tops of the DComs. For number 6, Johnny Tsunami, kind of a similar reason, but I just think that Johnny Capahala as a character is just like the most unflappable person, and just like
It's
deserves
true.
because of that. Like literally just so unflappable, and like it was him and Jet Jackson. I mean that's not his real name, but you know what I mean. Lee Thompson Young. And it was just they were a good combo. And then number 5, I put Halloween Town because as you said, like it's literally they just made such a classic with that one. It will always be on my Halloween lists to watch at some point. Like it's coming on right after night before Christmas. Smart House was number 4 for me because it is there's a reason why it's one of the top like rated DComs by pretty much anybody who's ever rated DComs. Like
Yeah.
it's tight, it's a great story. It was directed by LeVar Burton. Like it was just a great movie. It was just a great movie, and it's a lot of fun. And also basically spoke our future into existence. So shout out to them for that. Number 3, Xenon. As you said, like Xenon Carr is just a great character. One of the best Disney's ever created, easily. And Kirsten Storm plays her so well. You have a young Raven Simone. Like it was just like all the pieces were right. The chemistry was right, and everybody was just on point. And then not to mention that they somehow created, or the woman that wrote the original book created a slang, and then when they translated it to film, it didn't sound dumb. That in itself
Impeccable.
is crazy. Like I don't know if people realize that, but it is very hard to do like slang and make your own thing and make it not sound dumb.
Think
So
about every time that you've heard slang in anything
exactly.
and how awful it sounds.
Exactly. And they basically created their own of scientific terms, and kids loved it. Like the power in that.
Yeah,
Um
man.
so yes, that one. Number 2 is Gotta Kick It Up because obviously our girls were just kicking it up all over California. Just like they were just doing their thing. It was such a great film. We got a young America Ferrera. Like everything about that movie was so good, and we just really related to it for obvious reasons. And it was just like dancing and si se puede, and like classic down. Number 1 for me is Cheetah Girls. That one just had the biggest like impact on my personal life. Like I remember the first time I saw it, and my life changed. Like that officially, the soundtrack became in rotation. You had to pick who you were going to be when you were playing with your friends. Like it was literally a behemoth of its own making, and co-produced by Whitney Houston. And just, the songs were well done. The casting, we've talked about that, but like even with all of that, was well done for the first film and made sense for everybody's characters. It was just like such a true movie for that time period and for that type of girl, and I feel like it really spoke to so many Black girls specifically for a reason. So shout out to them for that. For my honorable mentions, Up and Away, because for what it was in that time period, it was really the first like for like kids, a Black superhero kids film, live action. Like Robert Townsend was onto something. He just didn't realize that he was 15 years ahead of time. Unfortunately, but I
Yeah,
still think
man.
it's a good movie. Like it was still fun. We enjoyed it. They can't like foil is their foil. Like um Jet
You
Jackson.
know I love a pun.
Exactly. Jet Jackson the movie is my other one because Lee Thompson Young just passed so young, and it's just like we rewatched it. It just you just felt all of that, and he was just such a good actor. That show was so good, and it also meant so much to Black kids because like he was a young Black boy playing a celebrity, and like he was a lead, and he got a full like life.
Mm-hmm.
And that just meant a lot, and so the movie was great because of that. I also said Brink because of course Brink is Brink. um and then I would say Twitches actually, because as much as it was like, you know, they clearly spent all the money on the Porsche and Tia and Tamara, Black Girl Witches, man, like we just need more of that. And I'm just happy that the sisters Maori were the first ones to really zip and do it, you know, and do it very well. So shout out to them for that. That's on my honorable mentions. I guess now, guys, we should get into our shared list of worst
That we had to like cut down because it was so long for so. And I will also just say like really quickly, Twitches 2 is my favorite bad film possibly of all time. So
Yeah.
like there is no scenario where my kids are not watching Twitches because like that'll probably also be in the Halloween rotation. Let's be real. And then we are immediately watching Twitches 2 every time. It's gonna be like Home Alone at Christmas. You know what I mean? Like it's gonna be
Yeah, I
that kind of
feel you.
situation.
Like I said, Nightmare Before Christmas. Like it's like there's just gonna be some Halloween movies, and Twitches is added to it, and so is Halloween Town. You
Yeah,
know?
for sure. But yeah, I definitely feel you on that one. I couldn't in good conscience put it on.
It was,
Because I
if
was
not
like,
solely for the Porsche, it deserves an honorable mention. And the fact that we knew that they were in Toronto, like it just the whole thing.
Right, the whole time we were like, "What is that?" And the scars and the oh my goodness. I recommend listening to. If no other, I would just suggest the Twitches suite of the podcast.
We were having fun. We were
we had
having
a
fun
great time watching it and talking about it. But yeah, our shared list of worst. Should we go from like worst to
worst
least worst, or like worst to absolutely utterly atrocious?
Oh gosh. Let's do. We only have 5, right? So like, let's do like 5 to 1.
Okay. I guess I'll do the first one. I would say Alley Cat Strike. The only reason it's not like higher is because they chose pretty people and Robert Rashad is great, and like I did like it as a child. I don't know if that just it didn't. We all got suckered. Like a lot of us got suckered in. A lot of people liked Alley Cat Strike. They tricked us. They did. The same way that certain slogans tricked certain political former president supporters. But yeah, it's literally for that. Like it is a movie about like victimhood in the worst ways.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't want my kids watching it because first of all, I don't want them thinking that it's okay to like think they're better than anybody because of the things they like. Like that's not cool. But also like I also don't want to like it's a twofold thing. Like I don't want them to think like that it's okay to like approach the world assuming the world is always coming at you crazy, or like creating that idea in the world. But at the same time, I also don't like movies that like make villains of victims.
Yeah.
And I feel like this movie does that. I'm just like we don't need to, because like then it's very hard for the people who are victims of like true trauma to get the support that they need, and that they deserve, because like everybody, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, right? So ironically enough, like, this is America. Like, that's supposed to be inalienable. So, yeah, that's how I feel. Like, I think that's why it's on the bottom of both of our lists.
Yeah, it was giving MAGA light, and I was just over it. Like, it just rewatching it, I was just like, yeah, no, this isn't necessary. For number 4, we put Halloween Town 4, which was not starring our girl Kimberly Brown. First of all, it had Sarah Paxton, who I have no ill will against. I loved her as Miss Darcy in Darcy's Wild Life, but like, that was not. Why did you do that? Like, what was the purpose? The entire plot made no sense. It was basically just a rehashing of Halloween Town 3, but they were in Halloween Town. Like, it was just unnecessary. Like, it was like, why are we doing this? And it was also a couple of years later, and suddenly Marnie is blonde. Like,
Yeah.
girl, nothing made sense. Nothing made sense. I don't know why they did that.
Yeah. It was a misstep in every single way. And I think it's even worse for me. Like, I'm even angrier at it because it is part of, like, I don't even know what you call them, but it's part of, like, the series of, like, one of my favorites. You know what I mean? Of my number 3.
Yeah.
It's like,
it's a
bastards.
tetralogy.
Tetralogy. Okay, got you.
Yes.
Sticking with Le Greek, which is French, and, whatever. Anyway, number 3 for us was Good Luck Charlie, It's Christmas. I know, like, we just couldn't, like, emotionally connect it. Like, we had no emotional connection to it at all. So, and, like, I still, you know, do you remember that scene with the guns? Because I remember that scene with the guns, and it will never leave my mind. And I just don't, like, maybe if they make a version of it and just cut that out, like, maybe it could be like number 7 on the worst list. But yeah, it just wasn't sort of well built. There wasn't a lot of logic to it. It just seemed like a very illogical, unnecessary, like, situation of shenanigans. And, like, I don't appreciate that. Like, kids aren't dumb. Like, you can give them a real story, as opposed to just something that you're just, like, punching laughs at them. So that's the huge part of it for me.
Yeah, it wasn't good. Like, it was just blatantly not good. We were bored. Like, I
Yeah.
remember both of us really sitting there just like, why are we watching this? And we wanted to turn it off. About, like, I don't know, 20 minutes into the film, because we knew exactly what was going to happen. So it was just not good. Just not good. For number 2, we did Jumping Ship from the Lawrence Brothers suite. They somehow managed to make a pirate and caper film boring. We still cannot figure out how that happened, because that's 2 really big, typical tentpole, like, you know, plots, and somehow it just did not work together with the Brothers Lawrence. I don't know what was happening. It was too long. Like, even though it actually was only 90 minutes, but, like, it felt like it was 2 hours. Pacing was weird. It was just weird. It was just weird all along, and we were bored. We did not know it was the sequel to Horse Sense, which should have told us everything.
They kind of advertise that better, man. They really do. They just be picking titles horribly. Which might bring us to number 1, Frenemies. Probably saw that coming if you've been following us all, you know, through the whole ride. Also just false advertising. It's not about frenemies. When they do try to imply that, they misuse the term. Just misuse it. So just lying to children, teaching them false information. And, like, it just, like, it's 3 stories about, like, nothing that's really that interesting, and they don't connect very well. And it's all, like, a lot of it, there's a lot of tropey stuff in it that's just not great.
Yeah, it was.
And I mean, and here's the thing: kudos to, like, Zendaya and Bella Thorne for coming out, and homie that's, like, that plays, I forget his name, but he's in Love, Simon.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
They came out of that with real careers, which is wonderful. I'm so happy for them, because this was garbage. Like, this as a start It was
really was
horrible.
We won't lie. We, as we said in the episode, we messed up because we did not look up anything about the film before we
It
watched
seems
it.
so
But also, I should not
self-explanatory.
have to do that. Like, I should not have to look up, oh, it's a series of vignettes. It's like, so why did we not say that? Like, a story in 3 parts? I don't know. Could we have done something like New Year's Eve or Love? What was that other one that they did? Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, you know?
And then they have like the I love New York, I love Paris. Or Paris, I love you. New York, I love you. Berlin, I
Yeah,
love you.
like that was a
thing.
whole genre of film for like a long time where it was just like, let's just get a bunch of random niggas to like go and meet each other and like in the town square, and then we go to the next one. Like, I don't understand why that was not done in this, because it's kind of what they attempted to do, but it was not like fluid, so it just was like clunky and weird.
Yeah.
10 out of 10 do not recommend.
Yeah, just hard, like
hard pass.
Not even in a fun way.
No.
Like, there's nothing fun about watching that film. It's just bad. And like, when it's bad for a children's television movie, like, that means it's damn near unwatchable. If I didn't have to record it for this podcast, I would have turned it off a minute and a half in, because I was deeply confused. And I was like, you know, like, I don't want to watch this boy running around with his dog. Also, where are Zendaya and Bella Thorne? Why were they talking to us that disappeared from the show for 45 minutes? That's crazy. Madness. And I can imagine that children were also confused. Maybe they ate it up. Who knows? They might have eaten it up. But yeah, it was just not great.
Just not good. Just not good.
And then I guess we also have some dishonorable mentions that will probably make people mad at us, but that's okay.
Yeah, definitely our first one is going to be the entire Descendants series. You can listen to all 3 of our podcasts on it. Like, I don't... By the end, I want to say our last one was maybe only 30 minutes because we were just done. Like, we were just like, I don't understand.
Yeah, like, you know, like... I'm not trying to disrespect Gen Z. Like, I'm really not. And I can understand why a child likes it. Like, I can get there, which is why it's not, like, ranked in my top 5 worst.
Right.
Because of that whole child consideration aspect of these rankings.
I see why kids like it. I will say that. Like, I see why, if when it came out you were below the age of like 15, why you would be into it, because the premise is great. This is what we kept saying. The premise is actually dope. We just don't agree with the execution of it. The first one was at least semi-passable, but way too long.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just got worse from there. Like, it didn't even build upon itself in a positive way.
And like, the character development was actually atrocious. Like, these
minimal.
Everybody gets like, the only one I kept saying it, the only one worth any salt was Evie, and that was just like the best of no pickings. Because like everybody else was just, and what's his name, the little dopies kid. But the rest of them, it was just like Ben has Stockholm syndrome. What's her name is playing real, like, Mal is playing like real house nigga by the end.
Yeah.
Like,
oh my god.
She's like Samuel Jackson and Django, you know? Like, she's like, I'm here, and I like
lock
being
these
here.
niggas up.
She literally was like, you can close that barrier though. Like, that's just what we have to do. Almost running wild.
Lock them up, throw away the key.
And
I
don't
understand
keep the
key in my crown.
I don't understand the obsession with Ben. Like, why all these girls are like constantly trying to get him to fall in love with them, and like that's how they plan to like get their comeuppance. Like, I don't like that. I don't like the implication for anybody watching it identifying with those little girls and being like, oh, a man is my way to get my comeuppance. It is fine if you were grown and 27 and come to that conclusion on your own after many, many things. Like, I'm not putting that in front of my 6-year-old.
Right.
But and then on the other side, I don't want anybody who identifies with Ben to think it's okay to like let people treat them the way that Ben is. If someone drugs you multiple times, you shouldn't be with them. That's crazy.
Yeah, no, that's like objective.
Like, don't do that.
Objectively insane.
Like, that is literally how people end up on the ID channel. And as much as the ID channel might be entertaining for us who are watching it, it is actually horrific for everyone who goes through it.
Exactly.
You know, and we shouldn't find pleasure in that. I don't really. I just know a lot of people who do, and it's one of my like. It's like, you know, it's one of those like funny social things that I know exists that people
a lot
enjoy.
of people really love true crime. I've never gotten it personally, but like
watching people get slaughtered in real life and bad reenactments of it. Kind of hilarious.
Whatever y'all are into, child, because it's not for me though.
Whatever keeps you from hacking somebody in real life, fine, cool. And then I think our other just general dishonorable mention is like, with the exception of Xenon the sequel, every single like sequel they ever tried to do. It's hilarious that on our top 5, 2 of them are part of like, you know, it's Halloween Town 4 and Jumping Ship are both like sequels that nobody asked for and nobody needed, and like then you did it and made us regret, like almost made us regret watching the first one. If this is what you're gonna do every time, or at least that's just how I feel. And that does include like Z3, because Z3 wasn't good.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, like Xenon the sequel is the exception that proves the rule.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that. I want to say our other dishonorable mention is Buffalo Dreams. It was just not. Oh my god! Like we were just sitting there in pain.
Do you know how badly I don't want to say that? Like, do you have any idea how badly I do not want the single American Indian or indigenous, or, you know, however you best identify, like whatever the best term is for you, film to be that bad? You know how much I don't want that? But it is. It's like, it's the representation that they choose. And the way that they have this little white boy mountain biking all over the place trying to save the natives, like I can't.
It was just so unnecessary too. Like it was like we really could have had a whole movie about Thomas and his sister and his grandfather and like their life that would have been very interesting living on a reservation. But instead, we have to have a white man come in and then try and take we had to have him involve other white men who were then trying to take away from the Native Americans again. Yeah. And then him over here using all of the herbs. It was just...
Remember when it was on his knees?
I know.
Just like literally doing what? Literally doing what right
when
now?
He was taking all those freaking baths. I was like, why do I need to see this boy taking baths? This is weird.
It's because he's stressed, Chelsea. He's so stressed about the plight of the natives.
Good God. Oh my gosh. But yeah.
It's like it lives in the same place as like The Descendants in the terms of like it, like not even it's a good premise, because it's not a good premise, but like the sort of the desire to create a film with representation for those cultures and those peoples is important and like a very good step in a very good direction, but it's dishonorable because of what the fuck you did with it. Like you took something that could, like, we could have soared. You know what I mean? Like that is something that should have been like top 5.
Yeah.
And you made Pocahontas Part 6, and I can't deal with it. It makes me upset. It makes me upset. And you know, like that being said, like of course, like because I know that there are plenty of movies that I've watched that I know are not good movies and are arguably not good representation of Black people, but like I saw myself on screen and therefore they are important to me. Like not coming at it from like not coming at anybody for whom like this is this is representation for them. And to be seen is to be seen at all. You know, like which is why it's like, but I think that we both are just like, but it feels like such a white gaze film that we couldn't like in good conscience like not bring that up in the finale of this thing. but not knocking for anybody for whom like this is like representation that you were very happy about as a child, like living that, loving that truth, and like I support that. I just don't necessarily support like the white people who decided to make a story about native cultures about the white man. So I guess with that, I don't know, like guys, like we really enjoyed doing this. It was a super fun exercise in, I don't even know what to call it. It feels like a very grand, like if I wanted to do like a sociology degree tomorrow, I would just take all of this and this would just be my dissertation. Like this would be how I get my PhD in sociology, examining like the building of children's narratives and children's phenomenons by like a major conglomerate in like a packaged, very machine-like way, in like for essentially like sort of most aggressively for the generation, the millennial generation that is at the turn of so much in the cultural shifts of the Western and developed world. Even though I hate the term developed, but you know.
I feel you. No, I definitely think it's been an interesting exercise. It's also just, a very good testament to being able to stick with something on our end. And if you stuck with us from the beginning, on your end too.
Because I know some of these movies, it was like even the recast people were probably like, what's going on? Like, they doing what with the bowling ball? Why are we watching these films?
That was us watching Good Luck Charlie.
Yep, the whole time from the beginning. But it's it's also it's fun to like revisit sort of the escape, like the general lack of disbelief of children, like because that's what you do by watching these kind of films, like you're literally watching, like you have to go into it just be like, all right man, like I'm literally just here to sit through something, like I'm not even, we're just gonna see what happens. And then like a lot of times, and I'm happy that at least like a lot of times we got to be pleasantly surprised, or we got to have like our brains sort of tweaked in a way that like maybe they like something that we just wouldn't have thought about that week or that month or like in the last year.
Yeah, we got on some good topics.
Yeah,
like, we got to, especially like we had some really, like, our Twitch episode was funny. But like our Color of Friendship episode was really good. I heard a lot of you gave us feedback and said that you really enjoyed that one, and learning about like interracial friendships and how we never talk about it. So I'm just happy that we've at least like started conversations out of something that honestly was made to be sickly sweet.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. I guess with that, like, I mean, like, I think like it sort of answers the question, but like I know for me, like, if I were to just like choose like three things that like sort of make these films as a general suite worth rewatching, or that like make them iconic, that can explain why they live in people's memories and in people's hearts the way that they do, and potentially might make me want to show them to my children, even the not so great ones, is that like like I think like first and foremost, like it's just like we see in the best of these films, like we see such self-assured kids. And I mean, like, I guess that's a thing of generally like children's media, like that's the idea. But I think that a lot of times, like a lot of times you get characters that are they're searching in many ways, and they do like a lot morally questionable stuff, and that definitely happens in this, like, don't get me wrong. But I feel like when we see sort of really great characters and really great character development, there tends to be like, I can point to it with Xenon, I can point to it with like Galleria, and we've commented on that. I can point to it in Lemonade Mouth, and even in Halloween Town, where it's like Marnie like trusts her instincts, and Marnie like doesn't let her mom deter her from certain things. And in Smart House, where he's like, bro, like I'm feeling something, I need you to pay attention to me. Like just kids who sort of not necessarily understand, but they trust themselves and they trust their principles, and they wield them sort of like non-maliciously, um and like I think that's always like super cool, and I think it makes sense, why like that would stick with a kid. I think that there's a lot of like exploration of identity, and exploration in particular of the plurality of identity. And I think that kids are always craving someone to tell them, like, yeah, you can like and do and enjoy anything and everything you want to. Like, you don't have to be anything. You don't have to be one thing. Like, you can, like, slashes are real. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like we grew up and we're all like, I'm a producer slash choreographer slash, baking champion slash like all this stuff. Cause like, maybe because we grew up watching like Eddie play baseball, like, and make a mean souffle, like cool stuff like that. And then just like third, like to me, like these are all just like films about like positioning yourself in the world, like whether that be in relationships and familial relationships and friendships, or whether that be in relationship to like your future goals and what you hope for your career or your talents. And it's essentially, they always ask sort of like two big questions, and it's like, what do you want? But then like, what is the most like compassionate and non-self-detrimental way to get that thing that you want? And I just like that that's positioned in front of kids, and I think that they do overall do a pretty good job of that more often than they don't. And yeah, like I don't know, like I feel like I can even turn, like the way that we talk about kindness and how we should be considerate of each other and compassionate with each other, or at least like the people on my non-existent Twitter feed say that. In this world I've like crafted it for myself. But yeah, like I think that I mean, maybe not a huge role, but I think that these films had a role to play in that. And yeah, I think that there are merits to this suite, even though it is fundamentally children's television films and therefore mostly terrible in terms of skill and execution.
Yeah, I feel that. I mean, I definitely feel like for me, the kind of secret sauce is just like the kids having some sort of like. We touched on this actually in the Phantom of the Megaplex episode. The charm, I feel like, is kind of what sells these. Like, even when I think of like all my favorite ones, it's just like there's something that's like charming about the actors that are in it, and then also, a certain type of quirkiness, I would say, to a degree, or like they're picking a very specific point of view, and I feel like that's when the movies shine. Like all of the ones that are on our top 10 list are very specific perspective. So whether that's like Cheetah Girls, you're dealing with like Black and Latino kids in New York City going to a performing arts high school, Gotta Kick It Up. Some Latina girls that are trying to be dancers in California. Like it's just like certain things that it's just I feel like that's when they're at their best. Personally. That also might be why The Descendants didn't do very well, because the perspective they were providing was from Disney movies. That's just my theory.
That's very real.
Coming up with right now. As I speak. But I feel like that the perspective and that charm is like one of the biggest things. And I also just think the tightness of the story was a big factor in it as well. I feel like a lot of our favorites were not long, but they were very tight. And the pacing was done right. And it just like the story was tight. There was no loose ends. You knew what you were getting into from beginning to end. And then I just think lastly, honestly, I feel like humor tends to work very well for these. I think outside of Rip Girls, all of the ones and Color of Friendship, all the ones that we suggested or that I suggested and said like were my top 10 they had like a humorous aspect to them. And I just feel like that is really important in general, but especially for kids films. Like kids really learn very early to process things through humor. We all do. And so I feel like bringing them a quote unquote message movie. in a way that's like got some humor and something funny in it, or you're presenting like this is what's like if you're a confident young woman, or this is how you could be, or this is like one way that we could do things in like a humorous way, tends to work well, and tends to make like really good films.
Yeah, and they definitely helped us. I would, especially with that, super agree. Like, and there's like they're very good at part of I think what allows them to live in our memories the way they do is like the way that they're good at creating iconography.
Yeah.
Like the fact that like we're grown adults and we're like, oh, si se puede. Like it just rolls off the tongue. You know what I mean? But like, yeah, like, and we all sort of instantaneously know what that means and knows what that means to each other. Like they're very good at sort of creating a cultural lexicon, and then that cultural lexicon is rooted in we're soaring, we're flying, we're breaking free. Like it's rooted in like we are being our best selves, and we're like loving our best selves, and like loving everybody else being their best selves too. So that's super cool, I think.
Yeah.
And just on that basis alone, worth engaging with again, or
Yeah.
introducing to someone who hasn't engaged with it yet.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think these movies work well when they like do that to the optimum level, I guess is how I would say it. Like, I don't know. It's such a it's I think any movie that does well, half of the time people never predict it's going to do well. Like it's like
Yeah.
it just becomes an iconic thing because it is, and then it's like, oh, okay, now let's make 5 more. That tends to be the way that it works. But yeah, there's just a certain magic, to these movies that like that make them so great. And I don't know if you can necessarily quantify that, but we're trying to.
Yeah, we've attempted to for
We've
60
attempted
weeks,
to,
so
yeah, we've attempted to give you guys some ways to measure that magic.
they might not all work, but we hope at least a few of them have caught some nails near the head. And otherwise, just like I think that my favorite part about this was like I really like I have never stopped being a kid, I don't think anyone really stops being a kid, but some people sort of suppress it more than others.
Mm-hmm.
And like, dude, sometimes it's really fun to laugh at some stupid shit. Like,
Yeah.
just some stupid shit. Like, you're having like a bad day, like, bro, put on the Even Stevens movie. I promise you will feel better. Like, you will. Like, it just there's a lightness to it, and I think it's part of that magic too, or it's like in addition to that magic too. It's just like it's genuinely like they're fun. They're magical and they're fun, and that's what Disney has always been incredible at, bringing the magic and the fun for everyone, like regardless of age and regardless of how many times you've seen it. And yeah, I mean, like they did it. They did it. They did it, and that's why we're all in their clutches forever. So yeah, this is it was a happy to be at the end of this tour de force, like for real, but also had a great time doing it. So we hope that you guys had a great time with us as well.
Yeah, and with that, we're kind of going to take a little mini break, but we will be back with season 2 soon. Definitely won't be long. You guys won't be waiting for too long. We'll obviously let you know via our socials and everything. But we hope that you've enjoyed this ride with us. Let us know how you feel on social media. And thanks guys for coming along.
Yeah.
Honestly.
So glad to have you here with us, like for real. And yeah, we will definitely be back. You haven't gotten rid of us yet, and we clearly like to talk and watch things. So we're gonna just keep doing that for a while until they kick us off the air. Probably me before Chelsea. I think you tend to be less inflammatory than I am. But yeah, with that, just thank you again, guys, and bye for now. End of the DCOM season, end of season 1, and I'm looking forward to chatting with you guys via the airways again.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of The Critics Kingdom. Don't forget to follow us on Spotify and SoundCloud so you can stay up to date, as well as interacting and letting us know what you guys think on social media. You can find us on Twitter at Critics Kingdom and on Instagram at The Critics Kingdom. We're excited to talk to you again next week.